Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hey everyone, this is Kevin, a.k.a. the Cleveland Strangler at the Brothers Commonplace. Thanks for checking out our podcast. And just a quick disclaimer before we start. We are a comedy podcast that covers many serious events. We aren't here to purposely offend or disrespect any of the people in the topics, but at the same time, we'll be trying to make each other laugh and crack jokes. So thanks again for listening. Be good, stay safe, and laugh at the dark stuff.
All right, fellas, like we practiced.
Yeah. 2, 3, 4.
Come on down, come on down, hanging with the brothers tonight, yeah. Come on down to the Brothers Commonplace tonight.
Alrighty, thank you everyone for joining us and welcome to the Brothers Commonplace. We are a comedy podcast that covers monsters, murders, mysteries, and more. Now, before we jump into our topic for today, let's go ahead and say hello to all my boys that are joining us today, my good, sweet boys.
Oh, I guess I'll go first. What's up, guys? It's Tim, or Travis Tritt, as they call me at the country club.
Oh, my God. All right, this is Andrew. You know, some people call me Bro Mama. Just what's up, guys?
Oh, yeah, I call him that.
Hey, guys, this is Spence, the singing swordsman.
Oh, yes.
Glad to be here.
And you all know me, it's the kid, Kevin, a.k.a. Kev Dog, a.k.a. the Cleveland Strangler, not to be confused with this week's topic, that is the Cleveland Torso Murderer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run.
Nice.
But before we get into that, let's go ahead and see what everyone thinks about this case, or if you guys have anything you'd like to say real quick before we start.
I don't know. Kev, I definitely think this is a good one for you to do because, you know, they did call you the Cleveland Steamer for a while.
That's Strangler, but I can see how that would be confusing. I did maybe leave a Duke or two.
Researching this case was pretty tough. I almost lost my head.
Oh, you dick.
Dude, yes.
So, I don't know if anyone has seen it. Did you guys see that video of Jim Carrey the other day?
No.
He's at, like, that fashion show, and they interview him, and he's just, like, really fucking weird, going nuts and crazy. What? And I just want to say he's pretty much one step closer to becoming Jim Scary.
Oh, fuck yes, dude.
And for those of you that don't know, which is everyone outside this room, we made a superhero podcast a long time ago, and one of the villains was Jim Scary. And that is just Jim Carrey, who's gone crazy. He's become like a serial killer maniac.
It's happening.
And what he does is he takes on his movie personas, and then he like commits crime. He'll go to like an orphanage, and he'll come out of the orphanage, and he'll be like, "Do not go in there." And then, of course, the police go in there, but they don't find any orphans, because where the orphans once were, there's nothing but 30 bowls of New England clam chowder. Anyways, he's pretty much close to becoming Jim Scary.
We have a mural wall set up with newspaper clippings about Jim Carrey and a map with like strings showing where he's been, and we're tracking the progress as he evolves into the real Jim Scary.
Like all the places he's been, if you trace it, it just draws the mask from Mask.
The movie 23, he had no idea he was making that movie.
They just filmed them for like 3 days.
Alrighty, so on to the case. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. This is a local tragedy. We are all from around this area. And by local tragedy, we are not talking about the drive. We're not talking about the fumble. We're not talking about the move.
Oh, man.
We're not talking about the decision. And we're not talking about the time that guy kidnapped those 3 girls and kept them as prisoners in his basement for 11 years. No.
Wow.
We are simply talking about the Cleveland Torso Murderer.
It's bad how much more of the sports references broke my heart than that last part.
Oh.
That's fucked up.
Have fun in hell.
Yeah, that's fucked up, too.
Have fun in hell. All of the killings take place in Cleveland, Ohio between the 1920s and possibly into the 1950s. I don't really believe that one is related, but some do. And most of the butcher killings were between 1935 and 1938.
Those were good years.
Great years. Actually, real shitty years, as we're about to find out. So before we get into the murders, let's talk about what Cleveland is like during these times. Well, it's the Great Depression. More than half the city's population is affected by this very badly. And according to a census in January of 1931, 99,233 Clevelanders are unemployed, and another 25,000 or so are laid off or receiving no pay or working part-time.
Or burning LeBron jerseys.
Or burning LeBron jerseys, which, you know what? Okay, everyone thinks that literally everyone in Cleveland burned these jerseys. It was literally like four guys, and those videos got like posted all over. So everyone thinks that every time a player leaves now, we all just burn their fucking jerseys, which we don't. I still have Manziel's jersey.
Oh my God, you should burn
Yep,
that one.
I know. So some parts of the city were often referred to as shanty towns, and thousands. You dick! Come on, man. These people would not be laughing at that.
I'm sorry.
So thousands and thousands of people are being evicted. It's just a giant dark mess of a town. But however, in the mid to later 30s, things do start to get better. The city is growing, and due to the steel and other manufacturing businesses, people are beginning to work and get back on their feet again.
Too bad that's not happening in Cleveland now.
Hey, that 22-game win streak, that was pretty nice, wasn't it?
It was.
Speaking of baseball, a little bit of side info, the 1935 Major League All-Star Game was played in Cleveland.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, alrighty, Kingsbury Run is where a lot of these murders took place, and it is located from the Flats and on over to about East 90th Street. It is located in the southeastern part of Cleveland near Shaker Heights.
And near, what's that place called? Jackass Run?
Jackass Hill, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll definitely get to that.
Oh, yeah.
So the location was kind of a natural watershed, and the killings didn't necessarily happen here, but this is where most of the bodies were dumped or found. And also the train and rapid transit tracks ran through the area, which is why one of the theories is that the butcher was maybe a hobo/drifter. So this whole area is just really shitty quality. I've seen it referred to as a hobo jungle. It's just filth and trash formed into housing and just places for people to go, but it's real shitty. It's pretty much what people think of Cleveland right now.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well,
you know.
say that, yeah, that was sounding exactly like it.
And right near this area, there's a place called the Roaring Third, which is where you would go to find bars, brothels, flop houses, gambling dens, and just a wonderful, great time, especially if you wanted to get murdered and never come back again.
Probably where you would find my father.
Probably where you would find my father.
Father, stupid.
I don't know him.
Yo, how come he don't want me, man?
Oh my God, yes, dude.
Will
Fresh
Smith.
Prince.
All right, anything else before we jump into this?
Fresh Prince.
No, I think that was good.
Alrighty, now on to the Cleveland torso murderer. He is, or she is,
Yeah, could be a girl.
a serial killer who would murder and dismember his or her victims. I'm just gonna say his, so I don't have to keep
It's
saying.
easier to say.
Many of which
Wait,
he
you're
would.
going to assume the killer's gender?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
You fucking
That had to been
son
thrown
of
in
a
there.
Yeah,
dirty
good
horse
point.
ass.
yeah. I'm gonna do it though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. seen it.
He was a serial killer who would murder and dismember his victims, many of which he would cut off their heads, some even while they were still alive. He is said to have killed at least 12 people and possibly up to 20 to 30. So his MO is to cut off the victim's head, sometimes their limbs as well. He would cut their torsos in half, he would cut their legs off, and all that fun stuff. Sometimes he would castrate the males. He would also apply some sort of chemical treatment that would cause the skin to get red, tough, and leathery as well.
Did they ever find out like what that was?
You know, I'm not 100% positive.
Because I could use a product like that.
Oh yeah. I feel like today they definitely would have found that out.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I didn't really find anything. I saw that maybe they thought he was using it to preserve the body, maybe.
Yeah.
I really don't know, though.
Could have been like the first uses of Nair. He was just trying that out.
Or I was trying to think of a Chief Wahoo joke, but I got nothing.
It's all right.
One thing to note, the cutting from the butcher doesn't seem to be wild or crazy, like a maniac just chopping or anything like that. It seems like he strikes with precision, much like the way Joe Jackson would strike the Jackson 5.
Yeah, dude.
So growing up with like one TV, the Jackson 5 movie, whatever it is, TV series,
Yeah.
it's like 5 episodes long. and it's like an hour for each episode,
Yeah.
and it's on every month, and every month my mom had to watch it.
Yeah,
So I've
same.
watched that thing like 100 fucking times.
Just
So
something different would happen.
So out of all the victims, only 2, possibly 3 had been identified, and most of them appeared to be drifters, hobos, or working poor people. The reason for this is because it would be easy prey, and nobody would be looking for them or would really even care if they went missing.
Yeah, which is crazy because I'm pretty, lower class now, but I feel like people would care if I got chopped in half.
Yeah, that's true. But outside this room,
I mean,
and have any of you guys seen the 7 Psychopaths movie? There's nothing really like too cool in it, but there's a part where like one of the psychopaths, they have a flashback and they show him and his accomplice, that one girl, they were killing the Cleveland butcher. They had him like tied down there, cutting his head off.
oh
That was kind of something cool.
yeah.
All right, ready to jump into the victims? You guys got anything you want to add?
Jump into the
Jump
I
right
will
in.
wait till after the victim part because I do have a pun to add in, but
Okay.
It better be punny.
And even though it's not a ball pit, we're still all afraid there could be a snake in there. So we're going to talk about the victims now. It does get confusing because the bodies were found not necessarily in the order that they were murdered. So we're going to go through the order in which they were found. And since most of them were never identified either, it is going to be a little bit confusing. The first victim we're going to call Victim 0. The reason for this is because she was found a year earlier and wasn't related to the butcher killings until after the bodies began to be found. So some don't consider her an official victim, but the Cleveland Police Museum does. So that is why I am counting her.
Okay.
So Victim 0, a.k.a. the Lady of the Lake, not to be confused with the Lady in the Water, that shitty M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie that I've never actually seen, so it could be good.
it's not.
It's not good. No.
Just seeing, I'm pretty sure Paul Giamatti's in that.
Okay, so...
Seeing him's, at least worth like 5 minutes of it, but then I'm done.
And if it's not Big Fat Liar, it probably sucks.
Exactly.
In September 1934, a woman's torso washed up on the shores of Lake Erie. But I'm sure bodies wash up sometimes, so it's no big deal. But this body had no fucking head, the legs were cut off below the knees, and the skin was red and leathery.
I mean, it's not the worst thing to be pulled out of Lake Erie.
That's true. That's true, I guess. Not going to argue that. So this body had no head, so no one has any idea who she is. And the police are just kind of like, well, this sucks. But like, what the fuck are we supposed to do about this? So the case just kind of went cold. But things are about to get a little bit warmer, Andrew.
Wait, did they really say that though? What the fuck is what is this?
Yeah,
Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
No, they didn't say that word for word. So victim 1, Edward Andrassi.
Furlong.
Damn it, Andrew. September 1935, 2 teenage boys were wandering through Kingsbury Run at the bottom of a hill named Jackass Hill. I don't know why it's called that at all. And happened across the naked body of a man wearing nothing but his socks.
So yeah, I heard that they were those like superhero socks that like are super popular right now.
The body was washed clean, drained of blood, and his wrists had burns on them, which means he was tied up at some point. As if that wasn't enough, his head was cut off. Which head, you may ask? Both. He was beheaded, and his genitalia was also removed. Yeah.
We were talking about the fact that they cut the penis off. I asked if they ever found it.
No, I don't think they did. I'm not quite sure.
It's like, what would somebody do with that? You know what I mean? Like,
Andrew, what'd you do with that when you were done with it, man?
I actually made a hand puppet out of it. They call it dick hand.
That's not funny.
you
bro.
went around and to kids' birthday parties with it and shit.
And I called it being my little buddy.
You did that thing where you take that picture with your iPhone where you have like your 4 fingers down and then you have your dick out so it looks like your thumb. And you take a picture of it with it.
He waited all those years till Snapchat was invented just to do that.
Yep.
He collected 5 dicks from 5 victims and made a dick glove.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
However, the police were able to identify the body because of fingerprints. And the man's name was Edward Andrassi. He was a 28-year-old white male. He was rumored to have been homosexual, and he also had an arrest record, but I'm unsure what the arrest record was for. And that kind of seemed to start the MO to where they said the butcher was going after drifters, poor people,
Yeah.
people with records, even though this was one of the only ones I found that had a record.
Yeah.
But it kind of set that up, too.
It sucks too because like with that name, he could have gone on to be like that spokesperson for the Dos Equis beer. Doesn't that just sound like like that guy?
And Edward was estimated to have been dead for about 2 to 3 days. Andrew, you do me a favor, dude. Will you say, but wait, there's more?
But wait, there's more.
About 30 feet away, another male body was discovered, also decapitated and emasculated. This person was a little bit older and looked to have been dead for 3 to 4 weeks. The skin on this victim, John Doe 1, which was also victim number 2, also was treated with the chemical agent that was similar to the one on the Lady of the Lake, red, leathery, and tough. So now there's a connection from that murder to this one, but nobody has any idea or any clue who is doing it.
What in the hell kind of chemicals did they have back then? Did they had like bleach stuff, didn't they?
Probably. I was actually wondering, like, has there ever been a person that's name just was John Doe? Like, or like, where'd they even start that at?
I don't know, but it gets really complicated when there's like John Doe 1, John Doe 6, and then when they find the women bodies, it's Jane Doe.
Like, John is definitely a common name, but is Doe as a last name very common? Like, why is that it? I always wondered that.
Probably because like the does, like deer, there's so fucking many of them.
I mean, yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah.
Wait, Andrew, doe like a deer, like a female deer?
Yeah, I hate all of you equally.
I love you though, Andrew. Victim.
None of us know.
Victim number 3. January 1936, a woman discovers half the body of a female wrapped neatly in newspapers and packed into 2 baskets. The baskets were left on the outside of a manufacturing plant, and the body was once again missing the head. The police were able to identify the victim by fingerprints. Her name was Florence Polillo. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it or not. And she was a bartender and also a prostitute.
Ooh.
Jesus.
Serving them beers and then,
Then serving them more.
Something.
Serve them at the bar, serve them behind the bar, I guess. That's not nice.
Like how none of us had a joke at all.
She was said to have been dead for 2 to 4 days. The cause of death was decapitation. And this time, the killer waited for rigor mortis to set in before cutting up the rest of the body.
Am I the only one that was wondering what was on the newspaper? Like what the
Yeah.
headlines were?
Anything as long as it wasn't like Garfield comic strips.
Yeah, but dude, imagine if it was. Like, imagine like finding a body and it just has like Ziggy on it and stuff.
Victim number 4. June 1936. 2 kids discovered the head of a white male wrapped in a pair of trousers.
Ooh.
And I also have here they were possibly Jinkos.
Oh, yes.
So,
Straight juggalos.
So he traveled to the early 90s to kill that victim?
so if they were Jinkos, there's a good chance there's also like 8 cantaloupes and wrapped up in those. Also.
They're finding some fucking yo-yos and pogs in there, too.
So the next day, though, the police found the whole body, dumped in front of the police building, clean and drained of blood. He was said to have been decapitated while still alive. The body had intact fingerprints as well as 6 tattoos. He has been nicknamed the Tattooed Man and even had a death mask made of his face to help try and identify him. More than 1,000 people looked at the plaster mask display as well as tattoos, but nobody was able to identify the man. The original mask, as well as 3 others, are on display still at the Cleveland Police Museum. Ooh. Estimated time of death was 2 days before they found him.
I heard, I'm not sure if this is true, it's just one of the things I read, but I heard one of the tattoos was the Chinese symbol for Pizza Hut.
Well, shit, that's why they couldn't find him. Find out who he was.
Yeah, I know. They're like, well, fuck, we all have that tattoo, so.
And he also had on his back, like, you know how some people get like their name across like their back? His just said, "Make 7 up yours."
Yeah, dude, he was that guy, the spokesperson. Damn, I look like that 7-Up guy.
Dude, I was just going to say that. Victim number 5, and this is John Doe 3. July 1936, a teenage girl finds the decapitated remains of a 40-year-old white male. The victim was said to have been dead for 2 months. His head and bloody clothing were found nearby, and based on the amount of blood in the area and on the ground, police believe the man was killed in this spot. It's still following the same MO a little bit. Like, he had his head cut off and things like that.
Yeah.
But all the killings up into this spot were not thought to have been killed in this spot. They thought the guy was just dumping them. And since there is no, like, really dragging marks or anything like that, a lot of people think it was someone who was literally carrying the bodies this far, too, and dropping them off.
Who the fuck has the strength just to carry that? That's like dead weight.
Oh, yeah. Well, this person...
Oh, sure. It's super dead weight, I guess.
This person's going through a lot of hard work just doing all of this. Like, he's cutting them in half and all this other shit and then carrying them.
Yeah, I don't really...
Like, I feel like they don't need to have all this, like, extra, stress put on them. They're already killing the people. Why do the rest of the stuff?
I don't know, man. I don't want the killer to be stressed out at all. That's mainly what I'm worried about.
They're already probably stressed from chiseling those panels out of that fucking door.
Victim number 6, John Doe 4. September 1936, a hobo, or transient, if you will, trips over the upper half of a man's torso while trying to hop a train in Kingsbury Run. The police searched the nearby area, which was just a big open sewer, and found the lower half of the torso and both legs. The police sent a diver to make the recovery, and over 600 people watched this spectacle happen. The police believe the killer may have even been one of the onlookers as well. And after this whole shebang happened, the police looked at the crowd and yelled, "Jesus, people, go back to your shanties."
Oh, yeah, it said it was coming.
I know. It had to, dude. Shooter. So John Doe 4, he was in his late 20s, and the cause of death, once again, decapitation. Fuck off. The coroner noted that the body had a lack of hesitation marks, and disarticulation of the body indicated a strong, confident killer, very familiar with the human anatomy. The head had been cut off with one bold stroke. The good news is, at least the victim most likely died instantly. So in 1 year, that is 6 killings, not including the Lady of the Lake.
Well, that brings up a new suspect then, probably the vampire Blade.
Oh, I wish. And the police had 0 clues and 0 suspects.
Except for Blade.
Yeah. It's the only one they need.
West Nile virus.
Oh, that's like one of like the causes of death. Like all the other ones are decapitation, then they just add that one in.
This one actually, he had his head cut off, but he choked on a Lego.
Yes, dude.
After he stepped on a Lego.
So at this time, the newspapers in Cleveland are reporting on the case daily. Tensions are high because of the lack of suspects and everything like that. So I think it's a good time to bring up a name that may sound a little bit familiar. Elliot Ness. He was an American prohibition agent. He was most famous for bringing down Al Capone in Chicago and being the leader of the law enforcement team known as the Untouchables.
Yeah.
So you think you're untouchable?
Oh, yes.
You mean the
War
team known as the Uncrustables?
Yeah. They just ate Uncrustables all morning. So what do you want to do today? Well, we got that torso murderer to go after. Okay. I mostly remember him as Kevin Costner in the movie with Robert De Niro, The Untouchables.
Yes.
And I always remember the scene where, because it always cracks me up, where Kevin Costner plays Elliot Ness, and his friend just got killed, I think, something like that. And he's like going after him, and he like approaches him, Al Capone, and he's surrounded by all of his dudes. And Kevin Costner, he's like, "Come on, you guinea son of a bitch." And Robert De Niro says, "What? You talk to me like that in front of my son? Fuck you and your family."
Oh, yes.
So this cracks me up. So anyway, Elliot Ness was the public safety director in Cleveland during this time, and we're going to bring him up a little bit more later on. But the police, they're very desperate to find any clues or suspects. He decides to put 2 detectives on the case full-time. Their names are Peter Merillo and Martin Zalewski. And they would dress up as hobos. They would hang out and around the Roaring Third, as well as riding around in disguise on train cars. You can see pictures of them in their disguise. It's kind of cool, I guess, looking at some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And in all, they had interviewed over 1,500 people, just those 2 alone. And the department as a whole interviewed more than 5,000. And this would be the biggest police investigation in Cleveland history.
Damn.
Is it still?
You know, I'm not quite sure. I would have to check in on that. From February 1937 to August 16th, 1938, 6 more bodies were found, most of them missing their heads. The last 2 bodies, found on August 16th, were in a location that was in plain view of Elliot Ness's office window. So, naturally, Elliot Ness and the rest of the Cleveland police were like, "Fuck this, we've had enough. this is all bullshit, so we're going to take care of it.
Yeah.
So, just after midnight 2 days later, Ness rounded up 35 police officers and headed to the homeless encampment out in Kingsbury. They raided the hobo jungle and rounded up 63 men that were living down there, and they exited them all out. At dawn, the police searched the deserted shanties for clues, and then they burned that whole fucking place to the ground.
Nice.
So, hell
him
yeah.
him and Pookie burned that motherfucker down.
Me and Pookie?
Burn that motherfucker down.
And they didn't really find any clues, but they did find a bone CD, so there's that.
In the last podcast, we did a thing where we put ourselves in the killer's shoes and said, like, what we would say. I had one for this. I would actually, like, befriend the victims, and I would tell them, like, don't you fuck with me. Don't cross me. And I'm like, if you do, I'll make you pay. So, you know, obviously they're going to cross me, you know. Like, I just know it's coming. I don't know why. After they do that, I wait till they're sleeping one night. I stand over them, and I kind of wait till they, like, feel me there. And they look up, and they just know they fucked up. I have whatever weapon I'm going to use to kill him. I'm not sure what he used. I hold it up in the air, you know, right before I strike them. I say, torso dead, and then I kill him.
Oh my God, that whole fucking
The build up for that.
I have a weapon suggestion.
Yeah, what is it?
Let's skip it.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. That's what he used.
Oh,
Somehow he used a hula hoop.
with the skip it, though, like you said, he took off the head in like one chop, so that's like one swing of the skip it.
Yeah, that build-up's the only reason that's funny.
So, are you boys ready to talk about the suspects?
Let's hear it.
Can't do it.
All right, number one, Andrew Carnell.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
That son of
Book
a
him.
bitch.
Book him.
Book 'em. You cook 'em. And I'll book 'em.
Oh my God.
So there are only two real suspects. They're not even both really good suspects. Maybe one is, I guess. So the first one, in July 1939, County Sheriff Martin O'Donnell arrested a 52-year-old Bohemian mason worker by the name of Frank. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Frank Dolezel. I'm just going to call him Frank. Frankie D.
Frankie, baby.
Yeah, I like that.
The charge was for the murder.
Call him Bohemian Rhapsody.
We can call him Bohemian Rhapsody, the Bohemian Rhapsody himself, Frankie D. The charge is for the murder of Flo Polillo, which was, I think, victim 2, maybe? It was one of the only ones
I
identified.
mean, she didn't die before she was that. I was going to say she didn't die before she was a waitress in Dumb and Dumber. Excuse me, Flo.
Excuse me, Flo? Excuse me, what's the soup du jour?
It's the soup of the day.
That sounds good, I'll have that. So the charge was for the murder of Flo Polillo. Frank had lived with her for a while, and some investigation revealed that he was also acquainted with Edward Andrassi and Rose Wallace. So she was one of the other victims who was possibly identified. Maybe it was her, maybe it wasn't. It wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
So this already sounds like a huge coincidence that only 3 of the victims were identified, and this guy just happened to be acquainted with all of them. So I'm not really sure how this was found out either. And for the most part, nobody really believed that he was the killer. But Frank did confess to it. However, his confession was a blend of incoherent ramblings mixed with precise details, so it just didn't sound right. Like, it didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that he was being coached on what to say. And before the trial even started, Frank was found dead in his cell under very mysterious circumstances, very strange and odd details. One of them was that Frank was 5'8", and the hook that he hung himself on was 5'7" off the ground. So, I mean, it's possible, but it is a little fishy. And on top of that, after the autopsy, Frank was found to have had 6 broken ribs, all said to have been obtained while in custody. So it sounds like he was getting, like, the shit kicked out of him.
And then somebody just staged it, yeah.
And they asked the police chief about it, like, hey, how did, like, never mind the hanging, how did he get the 6 broken ribs? And he said he probably fell off when he was taking a shit. So nobody thinks that he was the killer, but the sheriff was convinced that he was. A lot of the people think it was just because he wanted to blame, like, they had to put it on someone, you know? They didn't want to have this unsolved case going to this murderer. They wanted to get this case solved.
Yeah.
Suspect number 2. This is somebody that we have never talked about yet. So Ness, he had a suspect that he believed was the butcher, but he was unable to prove it. And he always mentioned that he had a secret suspect, but he never came out and said it by name. Later, in documents that were donated by Ness's daughter-in-law, it was revealed that the suspect was a man by the name of Dr. Francis E. Sweeney. And based on this dude's scary-ass picture, I'm just going to say, yeah, he did it. This fucker is terrifying. So just a little bit about him. He is a World War I veteran. He was assigned to the medical unit there, which conducted amputations. Oh. Ness had personally interviewed him, and he had given him 2 lie detector tests as well, which he failed. Now, lie detector tests, I really don't put any stock into them too much. There are ways to get past them. Plus, I heard, like, if you just, like, tighten your butthole, like, whenever you're telling regular, like, answers, that it'll match up, and so that people won't be able to tell when you're telling the truth or lying. Like, that's, like, really what I've heard.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool because I just do that in real life, so nobody can ever tell when I'm lying.
Like, I don't even untighten my butt, like, ever.
Yeah.
And present during the polygraph test was none other than Leonard Keeler, the inventor of the modern-day machine. After the test, Keeler turned to Ness and said, "That's your man. I might as well throw my machine out the window if I say anything different." So 2 things, though. Polygraph tests aren't concrete proof. And 2, another thing that was kind of questioned is why was the suspect, Francis Sweeney, such a secret? And why didn't Ness bring him up or mention him to anyone before?
Yeah, that is kind of weird because, I mean, if he did it, you would think that would have, they just would have booked him.
See, that's what I was wondering, too. And then, through more investigation, they found out, well, Ness was trying to be careful because Dr. Francis Sweeney was the cousin of an important congressman by the name of Martin Sweeney. So he didn't want to go out accusing him. And following the interrogation, Sweeney had himself committed to a mental hospital, and he stayed in institutions until his death in 1965. But while he was in there, all the mutilation killing stopped at this point.
Oh.
There were some possible related ones in different areas all over, like no more in Cleveland, I don't believe. But yeah, in the following years after the murder, Sweeney began to send Ness many postcards taunting him in different ways. One was addressed to Elliot Ambiguous Ness and signed from the American Sweeney. And the way some people take that is, yeah, his last name was Sweeney, but the American Sweeney, like Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was him,
Yeah.
honestly. And there was also a story in one of the documents about this guy named Emil Fronek or something like that, where he said he was walking around looking for food down Broadway Avenue, and he found himself in the doctor's office. And the doctor, Sweeney, offered him food. And when he took and ate it, he felt drugged. So he managed to escape and run off. And he passed out in a boxcar, and he woke up 3 days later, and he ended up like coming back trying to find out where the doctor was, but he couldn't find the building anymore. He was drugged, or we don't even know if this is true at all, honestly.
Yeah,
and he ended up leaving Cleveland and just moving away to Chicago. So Ness believed Sweeney was guilty. Others thought the Mad Butcher possibly just moved on to a different location and continued murdering elsewhere. Some say that he was responsible for the 1947 Black Dahlia case.
Which that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I don't really think so, but it is very interesting. Like, I haven't looked into the Black Dahlia case in a long time, so it's going to be cool to research it while thinking about this in the back of my head, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm...
Well, didn't the Sweeney guy move to California where the Dahlia case took place?
He did for a little bit, I heard. But they also said they couldn't really track him too much since he was in and out of mental institutions. And when you put yourself in there, you can leave anytime you want. Right. So it's hard to track him. And then I also saw another thing where they supposedly went and checked out an area where he said he did a killing, but it was just animal bones. So I don't know. It could be. I really have no idea. I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
He was also the inspiration for Patch Adams.
Squish the doodles.
I actually feel like the movie Patch Adams might have been an inspiration for the murders. Somebody's like, fuck this, man. I had my really good pun. Does anybody else have any good puns?
Fucking hit us with puns.
I know. I that's the only one I had. Does anybody else have any?
This is hard to be funny about. It's like not
it really
funny.
Is. Yeah, it really is hard.
It's a very interesting topic. Very entertaining. It's really crazy to read about, especially because it's like so close to here.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. This has been another episode of the Brothers Commonplace, where we do, what is it, monsters, mysteries, mayhem, monkey patching.
Pretty much.
Brown nosing.
We are a comedy podcast that covers monsters, mysteries, murderers, and more.
I think I said McDonald's last time. I'm just going to crack that joke again.
Yeah.
And Master Chef, sometimes we'll talk about that.
Shuffleboard.
Yeah.
And
Shuffleboard.
Shuffleboard, we might talk about that.
So if you want to find us on the interwebs, there's a Facebook page, Brothers Commonplace. There's a Twitter, also Brothers Commonplace. Someday our website will be running again, brotherscommon.place. That's probably good enough. Send us a carrier pigeon.
Yeah. Or send us an email at Dunder Mifflin Infinity.
And
send us a wolf.
Oh, yes.
And if everyone listening would share this with just at least one friend and go ahead and help us spread this like wildfire. Spread it like the fire in the shanty town that Elliot Ness burned down.
Yeah.
And if you could give us a review on iTunes, that would be really awesome, because that's the only way we can try to get our name up on the charts and for more people to be able to see us. That would mean a lot to us.
It would.
You know, post a link to our podcast as like a comment on one of Donald Trump's tweets.
Please. Please. Did
Yeah,
you guys
definitely
see
do that.
The Juggalo March today?
What?
We know Andrew did.
That one. Which, speaking of, how'd you get back here so quick, Andrew?
Yeah, Andrew, I noticed your legs are looking really muscular right now.
Wait, they actually went to D.C. and marched?
Yeah, because they're tired of the FBI calling them a gang.
Oh.
We're going to prove we're not a gang.
Yeah.
By painting our faces up. I went to a Renaissance fair one time, painted up as ICP, and I think about that all the time. It embarrasses the fuck out of me.
Just think, you just admitted that to the internet.
Yeah, but I have the power to cut that out.
No, dude, leave it in.
Won't, Andrew.
But I'll have it stored on my hard drive.
Oh, yeah. You have me stored in your hard drive.
Alrighty, thanks everyone. Be good, stay safe.
And laugh at the dark stuff.
The Starlight Lounge presents An Evening with the Progressive Box.
Old moon, yeah. That's Hugo, tickling the ivories. He just saved by bundling home and auto with Progressive. Gonna finally buy a ring for that gal of yours, Hugo? Send her my condolences. Hi-oh! This next one's for you two. There's a burglar in my heart. Thank you.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
You teared up because the barista screwed up your order. You finished a pint of fudge ripple ice cream in front of the freezer. You yelled at your desk neighbor, Leslie, for breathing too loud. This time, don't go and buy another box of tampons. Question what you thought you knew about periods. Question what you buy, what you use, what the usual way, right way is to deal with it. Revolutionize. Switch it up. Try the Diva Cup and see how it can make dealing with your period a whole lot better.